Yoga chapter, and on page 534, as Sukhi has already noted on the chat. And we will start reading from the mere function of breathing into and out of lungs. So, Yasmin is still not there. But we are recording, so no problem. Sunki, maybe you can start reading today?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, I will read. The mere function into and out of the lungs is only the most sensible, outward, and seizable movement of prana, the breath of life in our physical system. The prana has, according to yogic science, a five-fold movement pervading all the nervous system and the whole material body, and determining all its functions. The hatha yogins seizes on the outward movement of respiration as a sort of key which opens to him the control of all these five powers of the prana. He becomes sensibly aware of their inner operations, mentally conscious of his whole physical life and action. He is able to direct the prana through all the nadis or nerve channels of his system. He becomes aware of its action in the 6 chakras or ganglionic centers of the nervous system and is able to open it up in each beyond its present limited habitual and mechanical workings. He gets, in short, a perfect control of the life in the body in its most subtle nervous as well as its grossest physical aspects, even over that in it which is at present involuntary and out of the reach of our observing consciousness and will. Thus, a complete mastery of the body and the life and a free and effective use of them, established upon a purification of their workings, is founded as a basis for the higher aims of Hatha Yoga.
Yeah. Okay. So, very interesting what Srinidhi is saying. We'll have a look at it, and I'm going to ask a question to, we have so many doctors on our panel. We have Archana Di and Yasmin. Yasmin is an eye surgeon. Archana Di is a, I don't know, general practitioner. You are not a surgeon, you know. And Kiran Gangude is also an Ayurvedic doctor. I'm going to ask you a question when we come to that thing. Okay, so I'll ask you a question. I'm not sure of it. That's why I'm reading each sentence. The mere function of breathing into and out of the lungs is only the most sensible, outward and seizable movement of the prana, the breath of life in our physical system. Now, prana is the energy. That energy, Shakti, power, can take so many different forms. Okay, in the universe, we have the energy in so many different forms. There is sunlight, there is wind, and all these are powers. And now man has learned how to harness these powers. Sunlight with photovoltaic cells and wind by windmills. And then we store the energy which we have captured into batteries. Okay, and batteries also is a huge discovery. The storing of energy in batteries. That's a fantastic discovery also. Very interesting, because some materials can retain power. Okay, some materials, not all materials can retain power, but some materials do retain power. And we know, for instance, that is the principle used by Mother for the flowers, rose petals, blessings packet when she is giving. That is the principle. That some matter, not all matter, but some matter can retain power. So Mother used to use that. She discovered that in Algeria. Okay? And particularly divine's love, then pomegranate flowers, their petals are capable of holding the power put into them for a long time. That's why Mother used to like very much those divine's love flower petals. She used to charge them with things. So now here, this is exactly also what is mean. Prana, it takes so many different forms. So in the body, it is taking 5 forms. That's what he's saying. And we'll see what those 5 forms are. The prana has, according to yogic science, okay? Now note the word science. Huh? It is a very, very systematic, methodized method. Okay? It's a methodized process of awaking and using the prana in the body. Okay? Even outside the body, but anyway in the body. The prana is, according to yogic science, a 5-fold movement. And this 5-fold movement is prana, which is general energy, apana, udana, samana, dhyana. So, apana is the energy that allows you to excrete. Okay? Udana is that which allows you to go up outside your body also. Udana, uda, going upwards. Samana and dhyana are the distribution of food and oxygen to your system. So which one is using? I'm not 100% sure, but samana and dhyana. Okay, so there are 5 principles of the energy. They act in different ways. So exactly as there is in the universe, energy takes different forms. Here also the prana, which takes on different functions in the body. That's what Sri is saying. He has not mentioned the names, but I mentioned to you prana, apana, udana, samana, dhyana. Okay. Movements pervading all the nervous system. Nervous system and the whole material body and determining all its functions. There you are. So there is a function of breathing, there is a function of the digestion and the distribution of the circulation system. Okay? All this is there taken care of by the prana. The Hatha Yogin seizes on the outward movement of respiration as a sort of key which opens to him the control of all these 5 powers of the prana. So simply by regulating your breath, which is the outward sign of this energy, is the most outward, the most external sign of the energy. Okay? We don't see how the blood is distributing food and oxygen to all the cells. We don't see that, but it is there. So what we can see is the breathing. That's the most external part. Yes. Hatha Yogin sees on the outward movement of respiration as a sort of key which opens to him the control of these 5 powers of the prana. He becomes sensibly aware of their inner operations. Now note the word sensibly. Now the normal man is not aware of how the blood is distributing oxygen and food. He is not conscious. But the Hatha Yogin becomes conscious of all these operations, inner operations. He becomes fully aware. Okay? Mentally conscious of his whole physical life and action. He is able to direct the prana through all the nadis or nerve channels of the system. Now, this is exactly also the same principle which the acupuncture people in China use. Okay? They divert and redirect the energy which is sometimes being wasted or sometimes gets blocked. Okay? Because they get blocked. And that also is the same principle with the pranic healing people, Reiki and other things. They use the same. They take their hands and then they go all over the body, and when there is a blockage, they feel the blockage. And then with their hand prana, they release that blockage. Of course, the treatment is not absolutely final, but temporary relief you can get and temporary cure also you can get. Sometimes if you are lucky, you can get even permanent cure, but that is rare. Pranic healing does not solve the problem fully, but it does solve temporarily. Okay? That's what I'm saying. So this is the system. He is able to direct the prana through all the nadis or nerve channels of the system. He becomes aware of its action in the 6 chakras or ganglionic centers of the nervous system. So my question to the doctors are now is exactly, do the chakras, you all know roughly what the chakras are, no? In the subtle body. The chakras are not in the physical body, they are in the subtle body. There is one above, that is the above, slightly above the head. Then there is one in the center of your forehead. and there is also in the throat, then there is in the heart, then there is the navel, then there is one below the navel. There are names for all these, and I can give you the names also. But what I want to know from the doctor is, Sridhar is mentioning ganglionic centers of the nervous system. Are there ganglionic centers in the physical body? There are ganglionic centers, that everybody knows. But do they correspond to the chakras? That's my question. So these centers are the Sahasradala at the top of the head. Then here in the center of the eyebrow is Ajya Chakra. Okay? Then the next is in the throat. This is what Sridhar calls it. I think it's called the Vishuddha. Sridhar calls it the externalizing mind. Then there is the heart center, the Hrit Padma, they call it. Or it is also, they call it, Hrit Padma is a lotus center. Hrit Padma, the Padma of the heart. But there is also another name, it's called Anahata Chakra. Anahata. That's very interesting because Hatha means which is struck. Okay? And Anahata means that which is not struck. Now this is very interesting because all instruments of musical instruments, when they are struck, they make a sound. Okay? For instance, violin and veena and all these, they are struck. You plug them, like a tabla also, it produces sound when it is struck. But the Anahata Chakra produces sounds which are without being hit. Okay? That's why it's called Anahata Chakra. And we know that when the Kundalini Yoga, Kundalini Shakti in the Mooladhara rises, it creates sounds which you can hear, subtle sounds. Others won't hear, but you will hear the sounds. Okay? And those sounds are also very interesting. And there's a whole page in Savitri where it describes these sounds. Okay? The world soul, the canto, the world soul, he describes the sound without telling you that they are the Kundalini sounds. But in correspondence in some yogis who experience the sounds, he explains that these are sounds which you hear. Okay? Much is made of it in Hatha Yoga and Raj Yoga, but in Sridhar, he doesn't pay any attention to it at all. It is something very natural. Why pay attention to it? The consciousness is more important. So this chakra. So as I told you, Sahasradala, 1,000 petal lotus at the top of the head. Here, the Ajya Chakra. You get the power of also commanding things. Then there is the Vishuddha. Then there is the Anahata Chakra. Then below there is the Swadhisthana and also the Manipura. Okay, Manipura is the navel and Swadhisthana is below the navel, in the lower pit of the stomach. Then finally, at the end of the coccyx bone, that's a Mooladhara. All the energies there are stored as in a seed. And then when you do Raj Yoga or Tantric methods or even Hatha Yoga method, this energy is released and mounts up like a snake. It goes up and you get contact with the highest level. Then the circuit is complete. The lower is touching the highest, and then there is elimination. Exactly like in an electrical current, when you switch on the current, when you switch on the light, what are you doing? You are allowing the current to flow to the bulb from the source of the energy. So that's exactly what happens also in the body. It is so similar. The Mooladhara is the Moola Adhara. It is the root, it is the seed from which all the energy comes. And in the Hatha Yogic experience, you feel it rising like a snake. As though its snake is opening its head and it goes up. Sri Aurobindo doesn't pay much attention to all this. He says that we will not start from the bottom, but we will start from the center in the mind, because his yoga is more psychological, not physical. Hatha Yoga, Raj Yoga, and these yogas are mainly, they are based on the chakras, and we try to open the chakras. But Sri Aurobindo says those chakras will open by themselves. Don't worry too much about that. So we will have to start from the mind center. That's what Siddha says. Think of yourself as Atman in the mind. Okay? That is the Manomaya Purusha. Think of yourself as the Manomaya Purusha and start from there. Concentrate there. Or maximum, concentrate in the heart. Heart center. So, these chakras. So, I don't know if they correspond to the position. Are there ganglionic centers? That's what I want to know. I don't know. In the nervous system. Anyway, you can tell me afterwards what you know. Okay. Habitual and mechanical workings. So, the nervous and is able to open it up in each and beyond its present limited habitual and mechanical workings. So all these chakras open up. He who is a he, the Hatha Yogi, he gets, in short, a perfect control of the life in the body in its most subtle nervous as well as its grossest physical aspects. So he can control the subtle movements in the body as well as the grossest physical aspects. Grossest physical aspects, he can control his blood pressure, he can control his heartbeats, he can even suspend breathing, okay, for long periods. He can do that. Even over that in it, which is at present involuntary. Our breathing is involuntary. Okay. Then there are many involuntary movements in our the lids opening and closing, the eyelids, that also is involuntary. Okay. And there is sometimes stitchings on the body, that also is involuntary. So all these involuntary movements he can now control fully with his will. That's what Siddha is saying. Out of the reach of our observing concentration. Involuntary movements are there in so many. Breathing, not only breathing, but even the voiding of the stomach, that also is involuntary. The body makes you aware that you have to void the stomach, okay? Or void your bladder. Okay? That these are also involuntary. Only it becomes voluntary after you are aware of the thing. Thus, a complete mastery of the body and the life. So, body is the physical, life is the prana, the vital energy in you, and a free and effective use of them established upon a purification of their workings is founded on a basis of the higher aims of Hatha Yoga. So, what are the higher aims of Hatha Yoga? Again, the same realization of the divine. That is the ultimate. But they start from the body, and that's why it takes a long, long time. Okay. But in the meanwhile, you get all sorts of different effects, side effects, like great improvement in health, then longevity of life, okay. Then disease-free life. So all these things are wonderful. Hatha Yoga. Okay. So now we can go to the next one. All this, however, yeah. Yes.
Rangada?
Yes. Tell me.
Then can you say that this Hatha Yoga method is liberation of Annamaya Purusha? Can you say that?
Yeah, they start from the Annamaya Purusha. Yes. The Annamaya Purusha is the body. Yeah, that's right. Subtle body.
Okay.
You can say that. Yes. You can say that. Whereas Sremdas Yoga starts from the Manomaya Purusha. He starts from the, he's not so much interested in the chakra. That is automatic. That's a process. It's not the essential thing. Okay. That's the difference. Even Rajogai does not pay much attention. If someone wants to do pranayama and asanas, he has no objection. But the main process is psychological. Concentrate in the eyebrows or in the heart. Start with the idea that you are the Manomaya Purusha. You are the divine in the mind. Yes, Yasmin, you're trying to say something?
Shall I read the next para?
Okay, do that. All this, however.
All this, however, is still a mere basis. The outward and inward physical conditions of the two instruments used by Hatha Yoga. There still remains the more important matter of the psychical and spiritual effects to which they can be turned. This depends on the connection between the body and the mind, and spirit, and between the gross and the subtle body on which the system of Hatha Yoga takes its stand. Here it comes into line with Raja Yoga, and a point is reached at which a transition from the one to the other can be made.
Very small para and we say. So let's have a look at all this, however, is still a mere basis. Okay, it's a starting point. Hatha Yoga is the starting point of the real yoga. The real yoga's aim is union with the divine. And so it takes a long time, but you start very well, okay, and it's a very solid basis on which to proceed, but it takes a long time and very laborious process. So Srimad wants a shortcut, as far as shortcut is valid. Okay. All this, however, is still a mere basis. The outward and inward physical conditions of the two instruments used in the Hatha Yoga. Which are the two instruments? Asanas and pranayama. Okay. There still remains the more important matter of the psychical and spiritual effects. That will come much later after the body has been stabilized through pranayama and asanas. Now note the word psychical. Okay. Here very clearly, psychical is not referring to the psychic. It is referring, he is using the word in the sense of psychological, inner movements. Okay. For instance, your emotions and your reactions to things, okay, like psychical, psychological, and spiritual effects. That comes much later on. To which they can now be taught. So, to which they can be taught. But if you are satisfied only with the good health and longevity, Hatha Yoga is useful to you, you can even use it in that way. This depends on the connection between the body and the mind and spirit. So there is a body and then there is a mind which is in between, and the spirit is above in the spiritual planes of consciousness, level 2. And between the gross and the subtle body, on which the system of yoga takes its stand. The subtle body and the gross body, they are very closely linked together. In the subtle body, sometimes even the form of the physical body is seen. Okay, that's exactly what happened, because I gave you that example, very interesting example of the John Kelly. John Kelly is seeing Sri Aurobindo in 1942, 43, 44 in the Second World War. And he is seeing Sri Aurobindo as he was in 1942, 43, 44. And that is what? That is the image that you see. Okay, I just put the 1950 picture there. Okay, you can see the picture now. That was what he saw. This one. Okay, this one. Then, but when he went back to New York, he came across a book which was Life Divine, but there the picture of Sri Aurobindo was not this one, it was different. Okay? So it is this picture. This picture. I don't know if you can see what I'm showing you, but that picture. So he didn't recognize. But afterwards, later on, he saw another edition of Life Divine on which his 1950 picture was there, and that's the image he had seen. My point is that the subtle body and the physical body are very closely linked together. So the form also sometimes is like that. The form also you can see is very connected. So this connection is what the Hatha Yoga system uses. They work on the subtle body and the effects pour out into the physical body. And that is even more obvious in Raja Yoga. That's why he's saying here it comes into line with Raja Yoga, and a point is reached at which the transition from Hatha Yoga to Raja Yoga, because Raja Yoga starts with asana and pranayama, but is more psychological. Okay? The 8 steps of Raja Yoga, we know what they are now. They are the I will go to that when we do the chapter. Okay, Raja Yoga is the next chapter. So when we go to that, I'll tell you what the steps are. So So that completes the Hatha Yoga process. So Sri Aurobindo is not condemning the the Hatha Yoga at all. In fact, right in the beginning, in chapter, early chapters, second, third chapter, he has told you that Hatha Yoga is fine so far as aims are concerned. But it's very laborious and very time-taking, and you can do nothing else in life except that. You go on concentrating only on your body, what you are eating, what you are doing. So it's very cumbersome process. The results are striking, very striking to the normal man. They can walk on water, they can levitate, okay? They can do all these things. They have great amount of control over the body. They can suspend breathing for 6-7 hours even. Nothing happens. Okay. But these are very prominent systems, effects in a Hatha Yogi, which makes the common man marvel. But psychologically and spiritually, there are other methods which you can do. For instance, the methods of purification are different. They are not body-based. Okay? They mainly getting rid of attachment, ego, and desire. That's the purificatory process in the integrated yoga. Okay? So, we go to the next para. Not para, chapter. Raj Yoga. So now he comes to Raj Yoga. Earlier, yes, dealt with Raj Yoga and Hatha Yoga in the earlier, very early on in the book synthesis. But now he is going into very detail. Okay? Both the systems he is giving details. Because he is still not talking about his own system. Huh? By the way, the synthesis of yoga is divided into 4 parts. There is the introduction first, and then he goes on to Karma Yoga, then Jnana Yoga, okay? Then he comes to Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga is dealt with third. And finally, he comes to the Yoga of Integral Perfection, which is the Purna Yoga. So that comes last. So naturally, he has to deal with Raj Yoga and Hatha Yoga when he is dealing with the yoga in complete, all the possibilities. So we start reading now Raj Yoga. So Sunki and Yasmin read. So now we have to see. Yeah, Shilpa, you can read.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Can I read?
Yes, go ahead.
Raja Yoga. As the body and the prana are the key of all the closed doors of the yoga for the Hatha Yogin, so is the mind the key in Raj Yoga. But since in both the dependence of the mind on the body and the prana is admitted, in the Hatha Yoga totally in the established system of Raj Yoga partially, therefore in both systems the practice of asanas and pranayama is included. But in the one, they occupy the whole field. In the other, each in limited only to one simple process. And in their unison, they are intended to serve only a limited and intermediate office. We can easily see how largely man, even though in his being, an embodied soul, is in his earthly nature the physical and vital being, and how at first sight, at least, his mental activity seems to depend almost entirely on his body and his nervous system. Modern science and psychology have even held for a time this dependence to be in fact an identity. They have tried to establish that there is no such a separate entity as mind or soul, and that all mental operations are in reality physical functionings. Even otherwise, apart from the untenable hypothesis, the dependence is so aggregated that it has been supposed to be an altogether binding condition, and any such a thing as the control of the vital and bodily functionings by the mind or its power to death itself from them has long been treated as an error, a morbid state of the mind, or a hallucination. Therefore, the dependence has remained absolute, and science neither finds nor seeks for the real key of the dependence, and therefore can discover for us no secret of release and mastery.
Okay, so we will start reading each sentence. We got exactly 10 minutes to do that. As the body and the prana, the physical body and the vital body, are the key of all the closed doors of the yoga for the Hatha Yoga. Which are the doors of the Hatha Yoga? The subliminal, the entry through the heart, that is a closed door. Then also the vertically going up to the side. That door also is closed. Okay? So they have to be opened up. The lid over the mind and the veil behind the heart, as he says in one beautiful prayer. Okay? He says, a lid over the mind and a veil behind the heart. This is the first, he says, the veil behind the heart and the lid over the mind divide us from the divine. So what is the way in spiritual yoga? Love and devotion rend the veil. Not asanas and pranayama, but love and devotion rend the veil behind the heart. And in the silence of the mind, the lid thins and vanishes. So that's entirely psychological. Whereas here, the doors are closed and you have to use asanas and pranayama for opening the doors. So is the mind the key in Raj Yoga. So in Raj Yoga, they start with asanas and pranayama, but they also go on to the purification of the vital. We'll discuss that, what the systems are. And finally, you come to mind. Dharana, Dhyana, Samadhi. But since in both the dependence of the mind on the body and the prana is admitted in the Hatha Yoga totally, in the established system of Raj Yoga partially, therefore in both systems, the practice of asana and pranayama is included. Now there is a very interesting fact, okay? The mind and the body are connected very much. We know that. There are nerves which connect the body to the mind. We know that because all the senses, our senses, the eyes, ears, nose and all, they collect data from the physical world and send it through nerves to the mind. And the mind is interpreting what you are seeing and not seeing. In other words, the connection between the mind and the body is vital. The vital physical, all the nerves. And the nerve, so there are biocurrents. There is actually a current flowing in the body. Because there's a huge battery like, and then electricity, which is allows the nerves to function like electric wires, exactly in the same way. By the way, it's interesting to know that this electricity that is there in the body, the prana which is there in the body, it is controlled. It is normally, you don't even perceive it. But sometimes the prana becomes much less and then it becomes dangerous to life. But sometimes it increases also. I don't know if you know this, that's why I'm mentioning. Because this is very interesting. Okay? Sometimes the electricity in the body can become uncontrolled. Like we have the thermostats in your heaters. Now, automatically the current gets cut when the hot water in the heater reaches a certain level. Right? It gets cut because that's enough, hot enough for you. Exactly in this body also, there are built-in thermostats. They don't allow you to drop, you have to go above 106. Normally, 100, some people even survive after 107 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay? So, if you get too much, then actually the doctors immediately start putting ice to bring down the temperature. So, that can be very dangerous. So, it can happen. And also, there is hypothermia. When the body loses its energy and goes below a certain level, you are going to die. So, there is a thermal system, automatic thermal system, which regulates the temperature in the body. But this temperature can become very, very, it's a rare phenomenon, but it is not unusual. It has happened, and there are many, many cases. In fact, it goes to such an extent that your whole body will get burnt. It's a phenomena called spontaneous combustion. Okay, and if you go to the internet and type spontaneous combustion on your Google, you will see pictures of bodies in 15 minutes or so. The whole body will become a heap of ashes. Okay, or you can get burnt partially. It can happen. I mean, I have heard of very interesting things also. It came out in the newspaper once. This energy in the body. It's very interesting to know this. When you are wearing nylon clothes, okay, or synthetic clothes, you know very well now that the temperature in the armpit and in the lower parts of the body, in the private parts, the heat is more. You know that. But this heat can sometimes become so much that the nylon cloth will catch fire. It will happen. I'm not exaggerating. So you can imagine now what a fantastic mechanism the body is. It is giving you energy but controlling and not allowing it to go below a certain level and above a certain level. So all these things are there. This the Hatha Yogin and the Raja Yogin, they can control. That's what it's saying. Okay. The dependence on the mind and the body in the prana is admitted in the Hatha Yoga totally. In the established system of Raja Yoga, partially. Therefore, in both systems, the practice of asana and pranayama is included. But in the one, they occupy the whole field, and that is the Hatha Yoga. In the other, that's in Raja Yoga, each is limited only to one simple process, and in their unison, they are intended to serve only a limited and intermediate office. So, in Raja Yoga, you don't use 80 asanas. You don't. You use only 1 or 2, or even 3 maybe, but not all. And in the breathing also, there are different techniques of breathing. Okay, those who have done pranayama, they know that there are many different types of pranayama. You can breathe, and the breathing in and breathing out and holding the breath also. There are names and there are proportions. You breathe out and breathe in. Breathe in 4, breathe out 6. And if you include also the holding of the breath, hold it for 3 or 4 counts. So all different systems are there and different methods, each with a different specific aim. Okay. This is what he's saying. So in Raja Yoga, they are reduced to a minimum need, not as in asanas. Asanas, all the asanas are used in Hatha Yoga. We can easily see how largely man, even though in his being an embodied soul, man is really a soul, not a body. The body, mind, life are only instruments given to him. At first sight, at least, his mental activities seem to depend almost entirely on his body and his nervous system. In fact, now he's telling you what modern science thinks. Not in India, but definitely in the West. Modern science and psychology have even held for a time this dependence to be in fact an identity. In other words, they will tell you that the energy in the body is nothing but the generated by the body. You are eating food and it is generating energy. And your mind, the thoughts also are nothing but the function of the body. Now, is there a truth to this? That's an interesting point. There is a partial truth to it. We know very well that when you are sick, you can't think clearly, you want to sleep, so the mind is affected by your body. Then also, if you are disturbed, okay, suppose you have had an accident or something, or you had a quarrel with somebody at the vital level, then also you can't think clearly. So there is a connection between the vital and the mind. Okay? But a very common example is when you are upset psychologically, you can even have an upset stomach. Okay, so that also is well known. Okay, so we can see, so this is what Siddhi is saying. Modern science and psychology have even held for a time this dependence to be in fact an identity. In other words, your mind and vital are nothing but functions of the body. Now, of course, they are changing their views, but this is what they say. They have tried to establish that there is no such separate system as mind or soul, and that all mental operations are in reality physical functionings. There is a truth to that, because we know that the endocrine glands, they control the body in a tremendous way. Okay? They control your functions, and they pump their products into the blood, and it is controlling your system. Okay, we know that very well. The sugar in the blood is controlled by the what is it? The name for the organ. Is it pancreas? I don't remember. Yeah, I think so. Then there is
Insulin.
okay.
Insulin.
Now, then there are pituitary glands and these other glands which also control your different functions. Even the breathing is controlled by these glands, glandular movements. Okay? So we also know that the adrenal glands also, they subtly make you aware. When there's danger, the adrenal glands pump their products into the bloodstream and you become alert. Okay? So all these things are there, the connection between the, so there is a truth to it, but it's not the whole truth. The truth is the other way around. Okay? The origin of all these things is not the body, but the spirit. But there is a truth. Even otherwise, apart from this untenable hypothesis, the hypothesis that the body is the origin, okay, that is untenable. The dependence is so exaggerated that it has been supposed to be an altogether binding condition. And any such thing as the control of the vital and bodily functions by the mind or its power to detach itself from them has long been treated as an error, okay? A morbid state of the mind or a hallucination. This is his talking about modern science. Okay? Therefore, the dependence has remained absolute, and science neither finds nor seeks for the real key of the dependence. By the way, he wrote all this 100 years ago, more than 120 years ago. So these things are not valid anymore. The statements were true about science 100 years ago. Today also they are partially true, but not absolutely. Okay? Science neither finds nor seeks for the real key of the dependence, and therefore can discover for us no secret of release and mastery. In other words, if your contention is that the body is the only source of everything, your vital in your body, then you will never find your soul. Because you're satisfied with what you do. That's what he said. Okay, we'll read the next one next Friday. The psychophysical science of yoga. I've crossed my limit. I've gone to 43. But all of you have got also work, so we stop here today. Okay.
Merci
Au revoir,
beaucoup.
Anita. Thank you. Au revoir, Kimberly.
Thank you, Rangata.
Thank you, Rangata.